For more than a century, college sports operated under a simple idea. Athletes were students first, and they were not paid. That idea shaped everything, from how athletes trained, to how they competed, to how they were valued within the system. That idea is gone. In 2021, the NCAA allowed athletes to profit from their name, image, and likeness, also known as NIL. What followed was one of the fastest transformations in the history of sports. Today, college athletes can build personal brands, sign endorsement deals, transfer schools more freely, and in some cases earn millions of dollars before ever playing professionally. At the same time, many Division I athletes still spend more than 60 hours a week on their sport, more than a full-time job. In many ways, this moment was not sudden at all. It was the result of years of pressure building inside a system that generated billions of dollars, while the athletes at its center were not allowed to participate in that economy.
But basic questions like who is eligible to play are now virtually unregulated and decided randomly by judges rather than by reasonable, agreed-upon rules that could be very simple and very simply drawn. Federal legislation must allow college athletic programs to set common sense rules, simple common sense rules without endless litigation, and establish a fair name, image, and likeness standard that eliminates the patchwork of conflicting state laws.
I hope we see more stability because, as I mentioned, the pace has been almost untenable. I also think that we need congressional help, congressional intervention to kind of get us all on a level playing field. We're all, playing against the same rules against each other and going out there to compete and to win on the field and on the court, but not, the competitive nature of trying to figure out how to get around the rules is untenable.
One proposal currently under consideration is the SCORE Act, a federal effort to create a uniform set of rules for college athletics, including NIL eligibility and athlete compensation. Supporters argue it could bring stability, while critics question whether it would limit athlete freedom.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't accept that it's not stable now. It's just the market. And there are people out there that don't like it because it's different. Amateur sports don't make billions of dollars. Professional sports do. And this isn't minor league. Minor leagues don't make billions of dollars either and generate that kind of revenue. This is major league in every way. So I would allow the schools to pay the athletes directly. They know what they're worth. Like Duke knows exactly whom to recruit, exactly who to give a uniform to, and who to put in the game when they want to win. They know what they're worth. And it's not like the Duke administration is sitting in the Allen building going, how are we going to pay all of our employees? Like, do we pay the landscape professionals the same as we paid Coach Shire? Because they all work just as hard. They don't do that. They know what these players are worth. And I'm not picking on Duke here. I'm just using that as an example because that's where you are. But the idea that the NCAA doesn't know what all these players are worth is laughably absurd. They know exactly what they're worth.
To understand NIL, you have to understand how it actually works, because most of it doesn't come directly from schools. Instead, much of the money flows through third-party collectives, groups of donors and businesses that pool resources to fund deals for athletes.
So we do have two collectives, or I should say we did have two collectives. So when collectives first became permissive, we had two organizations formed. One Vision Futures Fund to support our men's and women's basketball programs, and then the Durham Devils Club to support football and our Olympic sport programs. And really, again, to drive dollars to student athletes, help them with NIL opportunities. This current year, when revenue sharing became permissive, we sunsetted Durham Devils Club and really just kind of took most of those operations in-house. One Vision Futures Fund still exists and supports our basketball programs in a different way now. But the collectives were really instrumental in helping us, again, drive those NIL dollars to our student athletes. We can't promise outside NIL, but what we can do is talk about opportunities that current or former student athletes have had in that space and or the resources that we can provide you, connecting you to different brands, different, boosters, the collectives, etc.
What emerged was not a centralized system, but a decentralized market shaped by collectives, donors, and competitive pressure between schools.
Well, when NIL first became legal, it was a bit of chaos. And so I didn't know what to think it would look like, and it became absolute Wild West.
At Duke, that experience looks different depending on who you are. Brian Parker is an All-American football player entering the 2026 NFL Draft. And like most athletes, his experience with NIL is far more modest than the headlines suggest.
I would say it really hasn't changed much. Unless you're like one of the Boozer twins in basketball doing every commercial for the March Madness. For us football guys and most of us that don't have those really big personal brand deals, it's just a nice added cash, a nice reward for putting in the work you've put in and being the player you've been and being accountable to a program.
As enormous sums of money have flooded college sports, one concern is how NIL impacts team dynamics. But did Brian Parker see that?
I don't think so, because there's plenty of guys on the football team making plenty of money, and I don't know what they make, but that's more just for them. They were the #1 basketball players out of high school, and he's had tremendous success on the court.
NIL was not Brian's focus. It was an added bonus to his Duke experience.
My first deal was after my sophomore season, so redshirt freshman. I had stepped up. I started 7 games that year, and for being able to step in and play, they gave me a small bonus just for becoming a starter. But that was it. It was just a one-time check.
For some athletes, NIL is not just an opportunity, it's a platform. In 2025, Duke athlete Emily Cole took that platform to Congress.
Some of you might know me as the Duke runner who went viral for documenting my week-long journey getting a knot out of my hair after running in the rain. While this moment may have been lighthearted, it highlights the immense reach of college athletics. Reach that was once largely limited to sports like men's football and basketball, but has now extended to female and non-revenue sports, thanks largely to the power of social media.
I knew that she was really successful in like the influencer NIL social media thing. I was happy for her. So I think for her, being an example of somebody that was in more of an Olympic, smaller level sport, and just doesn't have the following that the other sports do or the sport that they do, is just a great example of how NIL can be beneficial for everybody.
Testifying before Congress was actually really crazy because I got a DM on LinkedIn 4 days before the hearing asking if I wanted to join, and I wasn't even sure, obviously, if it was legit. And also I was sure that it was going to be virtual. And they're like, no, it's in person, and also you're gonna have to figure out how to get here. So it was a whirlwind trying to get there and also write my testimony and get that published. You know, it lives online forever, and then also make the shortened version that I would actually physically say once I was there. And the things I was really pushing for were keeping the minimum number of teams required for a college to be able to be classified as D1 the same, because if they lowered that number, it would allow colleges to start cutting programs. And then the second thing I advocated for was that college athletes should not be classified as employees moving forward. So it was a lot of sharing about my experience as a female Olympic non-revenue sport athlete and advocating for that. I was the only woman on the panel, and it was an honor to be there.
At the same time, we must protect Olympic and non-revenue sports from unintended consequences that could threaten their future. While NIL has created incredible opportunities, classifying college athletes as employees is not the right path forward. Doing so could put non-revenue sports, women's sports, and smaller universities at risk due to financial constraints. Instead, we must find solutions that allow athletes to benefit from their NIL while preserving the integrity and accessibility of college athletics.
But 99% of Division I athletes are not going to make a living at it, and they're not going to play in the Olympics. What being a college athlete teaches you, there's a reason why the Naval Academy and in West Point you have to be an athlete when you go through there, because it teaches you discipline, it teaches you about hard work.
College sports are thriving, but also threatened, and change was long overdue. I say thriving because you all combined to provide $4 billion in academic aid. Student-athlete graduation rates are at all-time highs, better than their peers who don't play sports. And our surveys show that student athletes enjoy their experience both on the field and in the classroom. Fan bases are growing, women's sports are taking off. It's all good. The threats come from endless litigation. I was a healthcare and government guy. I've been around a lot of litigation. Not like this. Attempts to force employment despite opposition from student-athlete leaders across all three divisions, and the pressures that coaches, ADs, and student-athletes face when it feels like there are no rules and no certainty. The message was clear: either make the necessary changes or someone else was going to make them for us.
While the NCAA, many student athletes, and Duke's own athletic director believe national standards are the solution, other experts disagree.
I would say whatever each school wants to do with their own students and their own athletes, whatever they want to do. Like, nobody's telling Duke how to run their science department or how to run their public policy department or whether they can have a hospital or not have a hospital. I don't see why we should have a governing body telling universities how to handle their athletes. Like the NCAA, there's a role for the NCAA to play in college sports. They do a great job running championships and promulgate rules that have to do with eligibility and the like. But they don't need to tell the universities how to pay people. Where's the governing body telling them how much they can pay coaches and whether it's appropriate to pay a basketball coach $10 million a year or what they should spend on football or all that stuff? They don't need that.
Before 2021, college athletes who transferred schools were required to sit out a full season, losing a year of eligibility. That changed when the NCAA adopted the one-time transfer rule, allowing athletes to move programs and compete immediately. And by 2024, even that restriction was gone. Now, athletes can transfer every season and play right away. Welcome to the transfer portal.
Money is a factor for every student, whether athlete or not. I mean, I can't imagine there's a student sitting in your classroom that didn't take money into account when making a college decision. When thinking about this transfer portal and what used to be the transfer restriction, it kind of strains the mind to think that when you're in high school, you should be bound by the decision you make when you have zero college experience. Yet you can't be trusted to decide what to do with your academic and athletic life after you've experienced college in a place and you want to go somewhere else. You know, to me, that's like laughable. So a high school kid is expected to bind him or herself to a university with no college experience. But boy, we can't trust these players to make a decision as to what's best for them after they've experienced a school for a while. I don't buy that for 1 second. And if we want them to stay, then sign them to a contract, just like you would with any other person in any other business.
Thanks to the transfer portal, college sports now operates a lot like free agency. Last season, after winning the ACC championship, Duke star quarterback Darien Mensah entered the transfer portal at the 11th hour. Duke sued Mensah for breaching a multi-year contract he had signed with the Blue Devils. Mensah ultimately transferred to Miami not long after Duke settled that lawsuit.
We're following that breaking news out of college football where Duke quarterback Darien Mensah has reached a settlement. The agreement has allowed Mensah to transfer to a new school after a legal dispute held him up out of Durham. He was entering his second season there, 2 years, $8 million in NIL deal with Duke after transferring from Tulane back in 2024. But he led the ACC in passing yards and touchdowns and was named a second-team all-conference.
For us at Duke, we really pride ourselves on a good culture and there's elite people on the campus and we have elite people in the locker room. We pride ourselves on that and only recruiting good people. And that was always Cutcliffe's thing, and Coach Diaz has really done a very good job with that. So for us, it hasn't been a big issue. Honestly, the biggest issue is what everybody knows about, the quarterback falling out. But as far as the locker room, everybody's still bought in. You know, we work really hard. We don't really talk about that. But I've had friends at SEC schools and Big Ten schools where it creates locker room fights. It's hard to hear that you're making $100,000 less than somebody, or unfortunately the market dynamics of it, or the guys that come out of the portal are going to make more than people that have been loyal and stayed 4 years. So like even though I just stayed 4 years at a college and been an All-American, we need a left tackle. Well, there's only so many good guys in the portal. They get to drive the price up, so he's probably going to make double what I make, even though I'm 2 times the player. And so that's where you'll see most of the tension rise, where guys that feel like they've been loyal to a place are getting undercut for somebody that's just coming in to fill a spot.
The same system that creates tension for some athletes is opening doors for others.
The biggest benefit of NIL in my eyes is creating this equality for women's sports. So I went to the first Love game in Houston at the new professional volleyball women's indoor league, and I am just so excited to see more of these women's professional leagues popping up and creating a more realistic path to taking their sports seriously as young female athletes, keeping more girls in sport, and really helping them realize that this is something that they have a realistic career in post-college too, because there are so many women that have come in decades past who had that dream and didn't have that infrastructure built in for them, and NIL is starting to open those doors and pathways to make that a reality for this next generation of female athletes, and I'm so excited about that.
Emily's story points to what's possible, especially for athletes who are never part of the spotlight. For players like Brian, that path is already clear.
It's more a chapter that's ending. NIL there's no union, there's not many rules set. It's kind of mano and trying to get what's yours. Whereas in the NFL, NFLPA does a very good job as a union of structuring everything and protecting their players and making sure nobody's getting taken advantage of. And the agents are all certified, and there's plenty. They help you down the road. Whereas like once your NIL's over, it's over. Nobody's coming to pay you anymore. So NFL is definitely more structured. So I would say it's too different from it now. They opened up Pandora's box, and now they're going to have a very hard time shutting it back in.
Pandora's box has been opened. The question now is what comes next, and how leaders at places like Duke respond.
The fact that I just started being a head coach 4 years ago, right, at 33, when I found that out, I think I was as adaptable and flexible as any coach out there, and embracing the fact that there is going to be tremendous change. You don't need me to tell you that a lot's screwed up right now. I'm very invested in the future of college basketball, and I want to be a big part of how we can create change. I'm going to be part of the solution, though. I don't want to be a part of complaining. But I can tell you I'm going to be involved heavily to try to rally some coaches and try to figure out how we can have a real solution. Because a lot of things that I would like to say really can't be done in the environment and the way this thing is set up right now. So that's something I can tell you I'll be focused on, though.
So when you come here, it's not just about one thing. It's not just about NIL. It's not just about making money. Really talking to recruits about the holistic experience. Academically, athletically, personally, holistically, all of it. The amount of change we've seen in college athletics in the last 5 years has been absolutely unprecedented. College athletics, since its inception, has been iterating, responding to societal change, to sport change, and has been evolving, but nothing as fast as we've seen these past 5 years. And I think it's probably because there was a little bit of catch up to do in terms of the whole NCAA enterprise, as just kind of trying to catch up, be a little bit more modern and attuned to the student athlete of today, which I think is what drove such fast-paced change. So it's really hard to predict. I hope what we see in the next 10 years, across the next 10 years, is a little bit more sustainability. Again, our financial model is extremely strained. There's no way we can keep doing business at the pace that we're doing it at. I hope we see more stability. I am really fortunate to be at a place like Duke where we truly do appreciate athletics, what it does for our student athletes, what it does for the university.
NIL did not break college sports. It exposed what it had already become. A system where money, performance, and opportunity have always been connected, just not always visible. And now that it is visible, there is no going back.